The May Melee, probably one of the biggest surprises out of this entire season so far. Dallas ran a gauntlet through the entire tournament, 3-0ing Shock, 3-0ing Houston, uh, and destroying Chengdu, their biggest threat in the tournament easily. Nonetheless, here we are at the June Joust with some really strong bands here that kind of neuter many teams in the league so far that have shown that they really rely on the Reinhardt as well as Tracer. And then with Sombra and Zen just kind of being outliers there. Zen's definitely a strong pick, but not as strong as, say, Bap, Lucio, or Mercy, or Ana right now. Week 1, opening up with Toronto and Paris. Paris has taken a map off Toronto with them losing the Reinhardt. Is definitely going to be a really big loss on their part, and it's going to really affect their performance throughout this tournament. London and Florida. Easy 3-0 from London. London's looking really weak. And then Florida having OGs, who is a really strong Winston player, just kind of carry the team there on his own. Saturday, Paris and Justice. Justice is going to be one of the main leaders here, I think, for this tournament, as I also feel that Roadhog is going to be making a huge comeback to this tournament. So, Justice is definitely going to be a huge, huge threat this tournament. And they're easily going to 3-0 the Paris Eternal. Houston and Atlanta, definitely going to be two close competitors, I feel, this tournament. With Jonggu unable to play the Reinhardt, as well as Gator not being able to play the Reinhardt. Both teams are losing their core to their compositions, as both teams have proven that they're really strong with playing the Reinhardt, but not really much else. But we also haven't seen Jonggu play Roadhog or much of Ball either. So Houston's definitely has some potential, but I don't see them being as good as they were this past tournament. But they're going to take a close victory against Atlanta. And with being said of Roadhog being part of the meta, Boston is going to definitely be a threat this tournament. Not a major threat, but they're going to be a threat. And to see Toronto and Boston going up against each other, it's going to be a close one. Boston going to be able to really prevent Sato from playing the Winston with playing Roadhog compositions, running Stand 1, who's proven that he's a pretty good Roadhog. Not really much else, but he's definitely a pretty good Roadhog. So we could definitely see that come out. Myunbong, really good Ana. I think he's going to definitely be able to really be a kind of supporter to Stand 1, kind of give him the nano boost to really shut down Sato at every turn, whether Sato plays Ball or Winston. Be able to just hook him and kill him one shot with the nano boost. Or not really one shot, but definitely almost kill him, if not do kill him, with the hook combo. And then Sunday, Atlanta and London going head-to-head. London just looking way too weak to really get a victory yet for this tournament. Especially against Atlanta, who is definitely had a strong showing at the end of the May Melee. Not going to be able to really play the Reinhardt, but I still feel like they're going to do really well against London. Justice and Boston. Roadhog matchup, I feel. And we're going to see really what team could play the Roadhog better. And that's clearly going to be the Washington Justice, who have proven that they're just a really strong team no matter what they play. Florida and Houston. You know, I hate on Houston a lot, but... Not Houston. I really hate on Florida a lot, but... It's because their team is pretty unimpressive. And Houston has really strong players in Jonggu and Piggy from Contenders who are incredibly strong tank duo, as well as Dante and Happy, who have proven to be a really, really good duo of a hit scan and flex DPS. Dante proving himself to be quite decent on Hanzo, although he won't be able to play Tracer. Definitely one of his strongest picks, or Sombra, who's another really good pick of his. But really, the DPS line is going to be the most surprising of it. But I do think they're going to be playing Happy on the Widow and Dante on Hanzo, with Jongu and Piggy playing Roadhog Sigma. Definitely could be a interesting play from Houston, but I do think that they're going to use that to shut down Florida this week. Moving into the East here, Saturday, Charge and Spark. Now, I'm not too well knowledged in the East region this year, especially right now. But all I do know is that Charge and Spark, even though they're both pretty low tier teams, Charge had done much better against Spark than I would have expected originally. But Shanghai and Chengdu are two teams I do know a lot about, mainly because they're probably my two teams for East region, or APAC as it used to be called. And Chengdu is one of those teams that don't need Reinhardt, so I don't see them really being affected. In fact, I actually see them being a lot better somehow than they were last tournament, because last tournament they were easily one of the strongest teams going into the into the main melee. And Shanghai they're one of the best teams in the league. So and seeing them against Chengdu, I think Shanghai's really gonna have to rely on neutralizing Gaga on ball, or Omeng if they play him on ball, because they're definitely going to play ball comps Chengdu. And I think that's going to be their main issue, is can they take out the ball, which I don't see them being able to do in the long run, leaving it a 3-2 in Chengdu's favor. Nixel and Fusion, 3-0 for Fusion. Fusion's looking really strong, so I do see them taking the victory against the Excelsior. Dragon Spark, 3-1. Spark's never been able to beat Shanghai, and I don't think they're going to start now. So Shanghai gets the victory over them. Nixel and Charge. I'm actually going to flip this, because Charge, I feel, will still be able to beat Nixel, because Nixel really doesn't have the synergy right now. They do have Ivy and Jonak, who are two really, really good players. But then the team is just rookies. And they haven't proven themselves right now as being formidable players. So maybe down the line, the Excelsior can kind of go back to being a top tier threat like they were in Season 1. But as of right now, I still don't see that happening. Chengdu Fusion, I think that it's really going to be a matter of, again, it's pretty much going to play out like the Shanghai match. Of, can Fusion take out the ball? And I still don't see that happening, because Chengdu has such an amazing ball play, as they have Gaga and Meng, who are two extremely good ball players, as well as being able to play the Orisa, have ball Orisa, or even Sigma ball to play a bit more aggressive. It's all just a matter of, can Philly beat the ball? Which they did it before, but they're also missing the Reinhardt, which could play a big factor in that match. And my predictions for the power rankings, number 1, Justice. For me, it's kind of an obvious pick. Justice is looking really strong, and with the bans, it's just going to improve them so much more, because they can play the Roadhog really well, as well as Decay, who, while loses the Tracer, really will cement, like, him as a really strong Ashe player. And that's going to be a huge plus for him because he won't have to worry about a Tracer or an Echo diving him. Shock is going to be an obvious number 2 here. Shock is definitely going to play really well, as they can play the Roadhog composition with Super as well as Winston with Super or Smurf. And their tank line is so flexible that they don't really necessarily need the Reinhardt, because they can still play other tanks. They can play Orisa compositions, they can play Ball, Hog, or just go full out with like a Diva Ball, which I don't see them really doing. But you also have Violet, who could play a McCree, maybe go play him onto Ashe, but I feel like Glister is going to definitely be played there. Hopefully we can see Glister. Maybe he'll be found one day. Seal, you have Gesture as well as Prophet. Going to be 2 major players for that team. Gesture, a really good Roadhog, as well as a Winston. So they have both of those opportunities open to them. As well as an Orisa. Gesture can really play any main tank really well. I feel like he's probably one of the best main tanks still since Season 1, because he is so flexible and how he's actually still able to be really good regardless of what he plays. Prophet, really proving himself as a great hit scan player, as well as a great Hanzo. Sabiobi being a good hit scan player himself as well. They can definitely run their grand finals Justice counter with the Hog Sigma and double sniper, which I would really like to see them go back to. Toronto is definitely, I feel like, is going to be really strong, as they can play the Winston as good as they can play the Reinhardt, unlike a lot of the teams in the league. So I do see Defiant being a top tier threat. Not necessarily the biggest threat, but definitely a top threat. Chengdu, they don't need Reinhardt. They never have needed Reinhardt. So it's a clear-cut pick here that they're definitely going to be the number 2 for the East region. Then goes to Shanghai. It could be close here. It all depends on how flexible Shanghai can become this week. And that's really going to kind of set the pace for the East region, is Shanghai's flexibility. Because Shanghai's proven that they can set an entire meta on their own. And I feel like that's going to be how it's going to be set, is either Chengdu or Shanghai setting up the meta, and the other team just kind of playing around it or mirroring it all together. Fusion, definitely going to be a close one between them and Shanghai and Chengdu. I feel like all 3 of those teams are going to be close, but I always feel like Chengdu's definitely going to be the upper hand there. But Fusion is looking really strong, but without the Reinhardt, their power is put in doubt in my mind, in my thoughts. Florida, OG is definitely going to be the carry for right now, on the Winston, as well as BQB on Ashe. So, and BQB is really going to thrive without the Tracer. A lot of these hit scans will. So, that's going to be the exciting part about the league, is that we're not really going to know exactly how this is going to play out, because there's so many different things that can happen here. There's so many different compositions that we could see here, and it's all just a matter of what this week will show for us. Dallas, we have Fearless, who's a great Winston, and it's going to really kind of show that the team is not leaning on Reinhardt, as well as getting Pine's return to the league, and entering the Dallas Fuel as their hit scan that they have long needed. And so now they're actually going to be able to play some meta compositions, but with the meta being such a disarray right now. I feel like Dallas is going to be in the same position as Shanghai in the matter of they're going to set the meta and they're going to make the other teams play around them. The Gladiators, they have a flexible main tank in Muse, but we're getting into the portion of the teams that are definitely not going to be good, but they're also not bad. You have Moth, Birdring, like they have great foundation in their supports and DPS, but the tanks are going to be the biggest importance here is what kind of tanks are going to be played and can their DPS and support like create that foundation for those tanks to thrive. And the Gladiators are definitely going to be able to be flexible to the point where they can actually kind of be the top of the middle tier, if that makes sense. Boston, I feel like a lot of teams are just going to rely on the Roadhog. Boston being one of them, the biggest one of them all. To get their victories, I feel like they're going to get a couple of match wins, hopefully next week. I don't remember what they're really playing, who they're playing for the rest of this tournament, but they won't make a tournament. But I feel like the quarterfinals, I don't think they're going to make there, but they're definitely going to be a threat to a lot of the teams. Houston, we really haven't seen much else from Chengdu other than Reinhardt, but hopefully he can play a Roadhog or a ball, and they can play ball compositions. But if not, I don't see Houston doing all that well. Same with Atlanta. Both teams heavily reliant on Reinhardt for their core, for all their core compositions, and Gator not really being able to really do well on any of the other heroes. And I feel like that's going to really show when we get to the rain matches of the team isn't flexible at all. That's Atlanta's biggest issue is their flexibility. It's not there. None of their team can really play much else other than their core one or maybe two heroes. And that's why Atlanta, even though they've looked strong, they looked really strong against Shock, but they couldn't counter what they were being played against. And that's why they keep failing. New York, just unimpressive in general. And I feel like that's going to be kind of like what they got to try to get away from. Just, they need to try to stop being so unimpressive and kind of make some big plays here. And I don't see them being able to do that because their team is just a bunch of rookies other than Ivy and Jonak. And Jonak, while he's still a good player, his Zenyatta is completely gone and he can only play Ana. Ana is his best hero right now because that's all he can play in this tournament. He can't really play the Baptiste. He can play Baptiste, but he's definitely not as good as he is on Ana or Zen, and Ana's not going to be able to carry the team. Charge and Spark, both just kind of unimpressive teams as well, and just big disappointments in my opinion. Not really much else to say there. Same with London. They have potential, and I'm really hoping they can actually do really well this year. And I have a lot of hope for London, as London was one of my top picks for this year. Paris, Valiant, and Titans are all the bottom three for a reason. Is because their organization is... I don't want to say they're dumb, because... actually, yeah, they are dumb. They got rid of such great teams. Vancouver getting rid of their runaway roster last year, and it literally just tanked the entire team. The organization had a big falling out, and the Titans are just in a big state of limbo of just awfulness. Valiant submitting to the Chinese and are stationed there, full Chinese roster that is just awful, in my opinion. Paris, as well, getting rid of all of their great players. Soon, Exy, the like, and hopefully Paris can, like, find something they can work with here, and hopefully pick up, like, a new player or something. But if not, they're looking really poor this year, and it's really unfortunate because they went from such a high place. And that's the unfortunate part, because all three of these teams were definitely good teams at one point, but they gave up their major players to pick up either rookies, in the case of Vancouver or Valiant, or just washed up players who have nowhere to go, like Paris did. And they fell because of that. That's the only reason why they fell, is because they got rid of their players who were really good and replaced them with contenders players who were not ready. Dalton, for example, is a terrible tracer. He can't play tracer. And when they were running the Ash Tracer compositions, Shockwave could not play both because you can't clone a player. It's the same thing with the Fusion problem. You can't clone Carpe. And they solved that solution by picking up Shockwave. He is easily their best player, and hopefully when Shockwave can actually play for the Fusion, he can prove that he is one of the best hit scan players in the league. And leaving the Titans was definitely that stepping stone to proving that he was better than the Titans. A lot of the Valiant players have gone on to either just leave the league or join another team. KSP going to Spitfire, Kai now on the Outlaws, and then the rest of the team just kind of dispersing elsewhere, either leaving the league. Actually, I think the rest of them did, and picking up a bunch of Chinese players who are from contenders, who are, like I said, with most of the Titan players, not really deserving to be there yet. But that's how I see this week of Overwatch League going, and really the tournament in general. And hopefully that this week of the league will be interesting and really kind of be a exciting version, like a new world compared to the first month of the Overwatch League.